Hello everyone, my name is Loko and welcome to a new video of how to play Zerg vs Terran. Now in the previous video I actually talked about how you should probably be playing Zerg vs Terran and how the game flow goes. Now in this episode we're going to be talking about the build order that you sort of want to be going for, and most and foremost in what order you want to be getting stuff and when you want to be making drones and when you want to be making units. Now first of all, I'm going to give you a rough outline of the order that the Zerg player is getting all his stuff in. Because honestly, there's a whole lot of variations in Zerg vs Terran build orders. When you watch the programmers play, they will most of the time go for some sort of LING, BANELING, muta play. But the order that they get stuff in and the timing for it is kind of all over the place. Zerg players are getting upgrades in different orders. Some are going LAIR before any double upgrading. Some are going BANELING nest before double upgrades. You know, there's a whole lot of safe stuff that you can do. But we are just going to go over the stuff that you at least want to be getting up. So first of all, every Zerg player in the world of StarCraft II versus Terran players is going hatchery first, into a spawning pool, into a gas geyser, okay? Doesn't really matter if it's 15 hatch, or 16 hatch, or maybe even 14 hatch, or 17, I don't know, I don't care. You want to be going hatch, pool, gas. After that, most Zerg players are rushing out 4 queens. Pretty much as soon as they can, they will get 4 queens. Some are delaying a little bit, they're going for 3 queens. And then actually getting a 4th queen a little bit later. Doesn't really matter, but you want to have 4 queens. 2 dedicated to queen injects in the main and the natural. Then 2 for the creep spread that is going on to the 3rd base and pretty much all over the map. And then a little bit later, once your 3rd base is finished up, you actually move one of the creep spreading queens to the 3rd base and use that to inject instead. So at that point you have 1 queen dedicated for creep spread, and you have 3 injecting all the bases that you have. Now as far as gas spending goes, it usually is going to be something like first Zergling speed, then double upgrades, then a LAIR, and then a BANELING nest. Okay? So first Zergling speed, double upgrades, LAIR, BANELING nest. That is pretty much always going to be the order in the early part of the game. Now sometimes Zerg players will switch this out a little bit, but I would always keep this one in mind. Next up, once they hit LAIR, you pretty much always want to be going for a SPIRE first, and then a BANELING speed. Doesn't matter if you get BANELING speed once again first, or you want to be getting the SPIRE first. Doesn't really matter that much as long as you get them. Now as far as the 3rd base timing goes, this is actually where most lower league players especially go wrong. The 3rd base timing for Zerg vs Terran is almost 99% of the time going to be somewhere between 6 minutes and 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Now if you take a look at a replay of a Zerg vs Terran game that you played recently, you're probably going to notice that you get yours around 7 to 8 minutes. But no, pretty much every professional Zerg player out there is getting his on the early side of the 6-minute mark. Now, optionally, in between, you will sometimes see Overlord speed, Burrow, you see a Roach Warren every now and then, even though if they don't make any roaches. But that is pretty much all optional. So what it all comes down to is making as many drones as you possibly can, getting a quick 3 bases up, getting quick double upgrades, and going for quick SPIRE into quick BANELING speed. Now let's just jump in the game and I will give you a short example on how you can be doing it. Okay, so here we are in a game. I actually don't have an opponent, obviously, because I'm just going to be showing you my favorite build order and one of the orders that I really like to get all these buildings and these upgrades. So as far as the early part of the game goes, pretty much the only thing you're gonna be making is drones. So here we go. I'm actually just microing my drones a little bit to make sure that they are mining on the close mineral patches, but it's not really that necessary, honestly. Now I'm going to open up with a 9 Overlord, and I'm going to set up my camera hotkeys while making drones. Right now I have F1 for my main, F2 for my natural, F3 for my 3rd, and F4 for my main, or for my 4th. Once the Overlord finished, I'm gonna make Zerglings or drones as soon as I possibly can. Obviously drones. Now in this specific game I'm not really gonna bother with any of fancy overlook positions or whatever. I'm mostly just going to focus on doing my macro thing and making sure that I make as little mistakes as I possibly can. So at 15 supply and around 200 minerals I'm going to be sending a drone to the low ground to make sure that I can start my hatchery as soon as I can. It's gonna be right now. There we go. And going back to droning. So that's a 15 hatch. I'm going to follow it up with a 16 spawning pool and a 17 gas geyser.
We require more minerals.
So 16 pool.
We require more minerals.
And a 17 gas. After that, I make one more drone, and I also start a 17 overlord. So far, it's been pretty standard. Like I said, hatchery into a spawning pool, into a gas, into an overlord. Gonna put drones in gas right away. And as you might have guessed already, I'm going to be making more drones. Affecting my my camera hotkeys a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to be starting a queen in my main base. I'm gonna start one set of zerglings as well, and I'm gonna start a queen in my natural as well. Now those zerglings that I'm making, only one set, only one, not four, not like six, whatever. Only one set. I'm going to use those to ward off any sort of potential reaper aggression. Besides that, I'm only making drones. At 100 gas, I'm going to pull 2 drones out of gas, and I'm going to be starting my zergling speed, leaving 1 drone on there. And since I'm max saturated in the main right now, I'm going to re-rally everything to the natural. There we go, gonna inject with my first queen. I did make an overlord. It's a little bit late actually, but I'm gonna start my third queen as soon as I can in the natural as well. Now usually there will be a little bit of reaper aggression going on around this point, but I'm basically just making drones. Gonna start another overlord as well. And keep in mind, we want to be getting our third base up right around the 6-minute mark. So, you know, I have to send a drone early enough for that. Gonna start spreading creep.
We require more minerals.
And inject with my queen right here as well. Sure, I have all my queens hotkeyed. I'm going to start sending a drone to the third base to make sure that I started right at the 6-minute mark. Now the point that I start making units instead of drones, because up until this point I only really made queens and drones, is right when zergling speed finishes. When zergling speed finishes, I'm gonna make around 16 of them. So that's right now. There we go. Going to make a big round of zerglings. Going to start another gas geyser as well, and I'm just gonna add drones back in gas. And now I made a whole lot of zerglings. As you can see, I got a whole bunch of them in production. This is where I go straight back into droning. So I'm not really going to bother with that anymore. Just straight back into droning. So those are the only zerglings I'm really going to be making. Now I'm also going to start double evolution chamber to start double upgrades right away. And I'm going to start adding drones in this gas geyser. Now, usually those zerglings that I just created will either be used offensive. In this case, I'm just going to pretty much just sit them at the watchtower. But honestly, if you're up against a Terran player, he will most likely be poking you with a bunch of Hellions right now. We're going to be sending this queen to the to the third base. Going to make sure that all my queen injects, starting a fourth queen, and I'm going to start my +1 armor and my +1 attack. And you might have guessed it, going straight back into droning. Now since I have max saturation in my natural, I'm going to start rallying everything to my third base as well. With my next 100 gas, I'm going to be starting a LAIR. At this exact same point, I'm getting a BANELING nest. I also want to start a few more gases right now, so I'm going to do just that. And I'm going to use this new queen dedicated to crit spreading. Also going to start another gas in my main base, and as you might have guessed it, only making drones. Now keep in mind, I'm not adding any more zerglings up until this point. It's super crucial that you're not adding too many zerglings, because if you add too many, your economy will just be too small. I'm just making drones pretty much the entirety of the time, until I'm max saturation, which is in a little bit. Now max saturation is meaning that I have at least 16 drones mining minerals right here, so that is what I'm waiting for. Once I have 16 minerals, or 16 drones right here, I'm going to start a macro hatchery. And at this point, I start massive amounts of units. Now at this point, you basically don't stop making any units until you are having the first fight done. So my LAIR is done. I'm going to be starting BANELING speed, and I'm also going to be starting my SPIRE, which is obviously going to allow us to go for Mutalisk. Once again, still making only units. Now, either you're right now going to be attacking with those units if he's not attacking you, but 99% of the Terran players will be pushing out right at this timing. So this timing of the units will keep you safe against pretty much anything the Terran player can throw at you. Now let's say for example he is not going to be doing that. I'm going to push myself as soon as +1/+1 is done. So it would be right now. Going to be starting +2/+2. And I'm going to be attacking right now because this means my Zerglings are most likely going to be a bunch stronger than his Terran army. After the first fight has done, I'm actually going to start transitioning into more gases. I can also go for a fourth base, but you don't really want to be doing that until the first fight has happened. Either because you forced it, or because the Terran player was pushing out himself. At this point, I basically got everything going that I want to. I can start adding more queens if I want. I can start adding more bases. I can start transitioning into the Spire. And yeah, that's basically usually what I will end up doing. So yeah, that is pretty much the entire build order that I would advise you try and do. Now keep in mind, you don't make any Zerglings, well maybe 1 or 2 Zerglings only to deal with the early Reaper, but you don't make any Zerglings until your Zergling speed is done. So once Zergling speed finishes, you make 1 round of Zerglings and then you straight drone up the 3rd base completely. This is really important, you don't want to be over making Zerglings at this point. Now the second part, where you start making more Zerglings, is when you have full base saturation going on. So that is 3 bases, sometimes with a macro hatchery in there as well, but that is 3 bases before you really start to ramp up your Zergling production. So up until that point you only make 1 round of Zerglings, and that is once your Zergling speed finished. So what I would really want you to do right now is simply open up a custom game, don't add an opponent at all, simply load up the game, hit return to game and practice this. Okay, just make notes, just write it down, put it on your second monitor, I don't care. But you want to be practicing this as much as you can. Just simply do it over and over and over again until you don't miss a creep spread, until you don't miss a queen inject, until you don't miss anything up until this point. Because this is all coming down to you. Even though your opponent is going to be messing with you in the early part of the game, you can be executing this 100% of the time. And if you manage to do it properly in a custom game without an opponent, without thinking about it, you will quite easily transition into a ladder game and try it out how it goes. Other than guys, all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. It will help me out a ton. And I will see you again. Bye! What upgrades you want to be getting, if you want to be getting upgrades at all, and in what matchup you want to get what.